If you're on Instagram, you've probably seen this camera show up in an ad recently. And if you haven't, you will now because you're watching this video. So sorry about that. This is the Camp Snap camera, and it's advertised as being like a disposable film camera, but it's digital, meaning that there's no screen on the back, there's no controls, it's fully auto, and it's got that wonderful, horrible quality. Let's look at how this camera works. I'm gonna actually crack it open and look at the mysterious hardware and see if we can get some answers. I'm gonna show you some cheap DIY upgrades that I did to mine. And then I'm gonna tell you the one critical problem that to me just completely ruins this camera. I normally avoid ads for products like these. I either ignore them or just make fun of them. They're just like nostalgic money grabs of overpriced random items on Instagram. But I couldn't ignore this one for two reasons. The first thing that caught my eye is that while this camera is advertised for children, to buy for your children to take to summer camp and get a digital screen-free experience with photography, it's drawn attention for adults. It has a following of adults who love the experience of using this carefree camera. So much so that they're making subreddits and Instagram pages all about this camera. And the second reason was I was really surprised at how low the price for this camera was once I clicked onto the website. Normally Instagram ad products like these are 10 times the price you'd expect them to be, but this camera was only $45. And I say was because at the time of this recording I checked and it is now $65. So less of a deal, not really sure why the price changed, nothing changed about the camera, but still less than Instagram ad products normally are. It's an extremely light camera coming in at just 3 ounces. The plastic feels sturdy, like it won't fall apart, but it is cheap stuff. The faux leather thing on the front is actually a different texture and not just hard plastic, so that is nice. This lens facade thing is totally fake, as we'll see in more detail in a minute. Using the camera is simple, which is great because this was originally designed for kids. There's a shutter button that doubles as your power button, and that is the only button on the camera. Only one setting can be changed on this camera, and that's this flash on, off, or auto switch. And it's not really flash, it's actually an LED that lights up before the shot and then turns off after the shot. It is actually decently bright though, with the optimal range for your subject being about 3 to 5 feet away. On the back, there's a shot counter and a grill for a speaker that makes an obnoxious beep when you turn the camera on and a cheesy shutter sound when you take a picture. Now there's not a lot posted about the actual specs of this camera, so I'm thinking we're gonna crack it open and see if we can get some answers. While I'm opening it, the website does say that it is an 8 megapixel sensor, and that does check out from my file sizes I see on my computer, but there's no info I could find about the sensor size or the lens, so I'm curious what we're gonna find. The inside is mostly empty, which explains the lightweight. Here's a speaker that goes beep. Camp Snap has alternative firmware that can disable the sound, but I'm just gonna remove it altogether because I found it annoying. My kids didn't seem to mind either way, but there is one reason why you may want to leave it in there, which you'll see later. Down here at the bottom of the camera is the micro SD card slot. The camera comes with a 4 GB micro SD, which is good for thousands of shots, but you could always add another card for more. This card is removable without taking the camera apart, but you do need to remove the screw on the bottom. This makes it a very kid-friendly design so your kid can't take the card out themselves and mess it up, but it still allows the functionality of having a removable card. Here's the battery and the size. This battery may seem small, but this camera is very good on power consumption, and it just feels like it lasts forever, which is once again very good for the use case of kids going to a summer camp or adults who just forget to charge their cameras, like me. Okay, now we're getting down to the sensor and the lens that I'm so interested in. So I'm seeing that the lens is just this tiny little thing right here that's adhered to the front of the sensor for this all-in-one camera module. And while there's not enough specific markings on it to get a real match online, I found several generic camera modules that look really similar. So it's probably one of these. These generic sensors and lens modules are actually pretty well supported and available, which makes me wonder if I could swap it out for a different lens and sensor combo in the future. And if it would still work, I don't know. That'd be interesting to try out. Now, I bet you're wondering how the images look. Image quality is a bit of a mixed bag, and that's even with the expectation that I knew that this was a bad camera. So let's just start with the good stuff. The lens is fixed focus and according to the EXIF data, a constant f3.2 aperture. With the small sensor and relatively wide lens, this makes nearly everything in focus from about a foot or so out. And once again, this is great for kids who don't have to worry about focus and getting an out of focus shot, or adults like me who can't focus. Also, the white balance leans to the cooler side of things, even on sunny days, and it's just not my preference. I prefer warmer tones. The good news is that it can easily be fixed in a firmware update, and the company has actually already released a few free firmware updates with some more teased on their Instagram. And these are for different JPEG profiles, like this black and white mode that I've been rocking. And this seems like a great idea if they're tapping into the hipster young adult market with this camera to get some more JPEG profiles. I think a cool V2 of this camera would be have a physical switch on the side that could switch between a couple different JPEG profiles, so you wouldn't have to flash new firmware every time you want to go from black and white to color or something else. Speaking of easy upgrades they can make, there's no way to mount a camera strap on this camera, so I designed and 3D printed this little camera strap thing that you can just glue to the side of the camera. I'll put the file to that in the description, super easy. I also added a filter ring to the front of mine, which I think would be a very easy upgrade for them to make in the future. Just add some threads to this fake lens facade up here. In my case, I used a 37mm to 49mm step-up ring, which fits perfectly over the lens facade, though it does cover a bit of the viewfinder. Smaller filters would not block the viewfinder, but 49mm is just what I had on hand. By the way, that viewfinder, we didn't talk about it earlier, is actually not bad. I've definitely used smaller viewfinders before on old Digicams, and this was a pleasant experience for both me and my kids. It's not bad to look through. Oh yeah, kids, what this camera was originally designed for. My kids actually really love this camera. My 3-year-old was entertained for a whole hour taking pictures of everything. But then again, they have also loved these old Digicams I've gotten them, which can be had anywhere for $10 to $40, which begs the question, does the Camp Snap actually offer anything new? Well, I think yes and no. These older cameras are cheaper and better quality in just about every way. But to the Camp Snap's credit, it would take much more to break this camera. The batteries last way longer, and it's just dead simple to use. And all these practical features really do fit a kid better. As for an adult though, I really see no pluses in buying this camera over just an older Digicam. But it's not the image quality, the lack of a filter ring or a strap mount, or the comparison to older Digicams that is the major flaw of this camera. No, there is one thing that makes me not recommend this camera unless they can fix it. And I'll just show you, see if you can catch it. Once you press the shutter button, there is a delay before the picture is actually taken. And this may not seem like a big deal, but it makes what is otherwise an extremely fun toy snapshot camera really frustrating to use in the real world. And then this is just frustrating for kids who are always trying to capture the moment like someone jumping off a rock or something. I had to retrain my kids with how to use the camera, press the shutter button, and then just hold and wait until you hear the click by that speaker, and then you can move. That click, by the way, that's the reason why you might want to leave the speaker on, because that's really the easiest way to know that it actually took a shot. Otherwise, you'll see a flash on the screen back here. You could use that. There's actually a lot here that's pretty good, especially for a first try. And I think with some improvements, especially with the shutter delay, and if they keep the price low, I don't know, this is kind of a fun camera, fun toy camera. And yeah, my kids loved it. But I personally would just use an old Digicam. Thanks for watching. Hope you're doing well. Take photos wherever you are with whatever camera you have. And until next time, as always, happy snapping.